Breaking news. Putin is engaged in an endless war. The West simply cannot cut off Ukraine at this time. Still, they fail to comprehend. Too many prominent politicians in the United States and Europe still don't seem to understand the existential threat posed by Vladimir Putin's Russia, even after 18 months of horror in Ukraine. They keep hoping that, like all other wars, this one can be settled through talks. However, the Kremlin expects nothing less than complete capitulation from Kyiv, which will not occur. As Ukraine's armed forces continue to be unable to achieve a military victory, there is increasing pressure for negotiations. Frustration at the front causes the war to escalate and spread to new areas, which is very concerning. The multiple drone attacks that occurred deep within Russian territory last week dramatically illustrated this fear. Nuclear apprehension, rising hunger in grain-starved poor countries, and war fatigue in the general public all contribute to the desire for dialogue. Former French President Nicolas Sarkozy, who should know better, has joined the growing number of conservative and liberal politicians in France, Germany, and Italy who want to make up with Vladimir Putin. Sarkozy repeated Russian demands that Ukraine give up the occupied peninsula of Crimea and any other territory under Russian control and be barred from joining NATO and the European Union. There needs to be a re-establishment of neighborly relations between Russia and France, he said. Whether Joe Biden is re-elected or not next year, there is growing pressure in the United States to reduce aid to Ukraine and impose a peace settlement. Trump, a Putin supporter, might try to impose a quick deal if he is elected, cutting off funding to Kyiv in the process. Josep Borrell, the EU's foreign policy chief, recently announced his intention to organize a high-level gathering on Ukraine, most likely in conjunction with this month's United Nations General Assembly. This comes after 40 nations met in Saudi Arabia to discuss the situation. However, Borrell is not trying to put pressure on Ukraine to end the fighting or make concessions. He sounded pessimistic and harshly criticized governments for not better arming Kyiv sooner. Borrell warned that hesitating can be very costly when making the decision to aid a country that has been invaded militarily. Had decisions been taken faster and with more anticipation on some of the weapon systems we ended up sending, then probably the war would have taken a different path, and in any case we would have saved lives. Olaf Scholz, the German chancellor, and others must be fuming at this point. All this back and forth, though, assumes, with considerable uncertainty, that Putin is willing to talk. He may believe that he has time on his side because winter is coming, the battlegrounds are at a standstill, and there will soon be swing elections in Europe and the United States. It's possible that public opinion in Russia is also changing, though not necessarily in favor of the war but rather in reaction to the shocking prospect of defeat. The Ukrainian drone attacks may be uniting Russians behind the Kremlin, according to recent polling cited by Carnegie analyst Tatiana Stanovaya. According to Stanovaya, public desire for peace talks or a Russian withdrawal was not increased in any way after the attacks. The stakes for the country's survival are rising, and that's making people more dedicated to the fight. A new essay titled The Return of the Enemy, by Brookings analyst Constanza Stelzenmüller suggests that the situation is even worse. She wrote that, only Ukraine's complete surrender is acceptable as the basis for a peace agreement, which is what the Kremlin has insisted on repeatedly.